Go we start soon, members. Thank you.
Some holidays and we don't.
Yes, okay.
Again, what's an apology?
Okay.
So, should not be saying. Yes, whatever. Yes,
That's good. Okay. Okay, members, I'll make a wee start just. I'll welcome you to the Regeneration Community Committee on the 5th of July in the Grange, Oma. Welcome to you all this evening. We'll go to item 1 on our agenda is apologies. Just is there anybody you can indicate, please, members? Councillor McElduff.
Just an apology from Podrigan Kelly, Councillor Podrigan Kelly. You might have received it otherwise, but
Okay, thank
definitely
you.
from Podrigan.
Thank you. Any other apologies? No. Okay, members, thank you. No, we've received no others, so item 2 is to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of the previous meeting held on the 13th of June. Those have been signed. And item 3, is there any declarations of interest? Okay. Oh, sorry, members. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I think I better declare an interest in item 10.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. It's just good evening. It's just item 6.2 as a member of Peace Plus.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, members. Item 4.1 is to consider report and proposed contribution to mountain biking NI marketing consortium paper A. I think this is just brought back from last month. So Alison, please.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Members had requested some additional information in relation to this contribution, so that detail has been sought and provided. Obviously, it's a matter for members, Chair, but we'd certainly be recommending to you that the Council approves the contribution. Appropriate financial provision has been made in the estimates, and certainly Gorchin Glens is working well as a destination for mountain biking.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to Alison for her report. I think this is a very, very interesting report, and it's a good positive report as well. I would formally go to the recommendation and propose a recommendation accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Diana.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the officers for getting the additional information. Personally, I'm not as keen on this. Obviously, it'll be up to the committee, but I'm just looking through the report and the additional information. You know, they say, oh, direct access to 30,000 mountain bikers via social media. Well, I doubt everyone who follows them on social media is a mountain biker, and I don't think they've taken into account duplication across social media platforms and that. So really, it's smaller than that, and including that, even when it comes to their newsletter, inactive followers of these. That's a massive thing in social media, is those who follow and like pages but have no interaction and don't even see anything from them as well. So I'm always a bit skeptical of audience numbers. And at the end of the day, I'm looking through those KPIs and performance indicators that have been put in. So really, what we're paying 6,300 for will be 5 press articles and 2 influencer visits. Now, I don't know who the influencers are, and there'd be a lot of value in knowing who they were and what their audience were, because you can be classified as an influencer with a very small following. I have friends who have followings in 3 figures, so less than 1,000, but have been offered influencer deals to promote products. So I would be again skeptical of that without seeing the name, and then including 5% greater traffic and visit to the page. There appear to be about 2,200 visits, unique visits to the web page in the last year. They're just asking for about 100 more visits to a web page in a year. You know, I think between us in this chamber, maybe looking at the web page over the past 2 meetings, we've probably accounted for 40 or 50 of that already. So again, I'm not keen on that. And, you know, I was looking through their social media again that they attached last month regarding Gortin Glens, and the vast majority of it was around one event that Mountain Bike and I didn't even organise. It was organised as an external event and a competitive event. They just were sharing posts obviously relevant to that event. So just at this moment in time when we're really trying to find every penny that we can, I personally wouldn't be in favour of supporting this at this point, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor. Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Well, Chair, I mean, based on the information presented, I mean, I would be slightly more inclined to feel comfortable in actually seconding the recommendation. Although recognising some of the concerns that have been articulated by Councillor Gannon, I would possibly wish to amend that by saying that perhaps it would be worthwhile in going forward with these recommendations that we actually seek to engage formally with the organisation just to see can those concerns be ironed out, can those questions potentially be answered. But largely, I do feel slightly more confident and would be more than happy to proceed and support the recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd be broadly happy as well, although I do just have a query. I mean, the Gortin Glens is doing very well as an attraction for mountain biking and that. And I suppose, am I right in saying that is the attraction? Is there any periphery? I'm just genuinely curious. Periphery sites that are of interest to mountain bikers or to bikers generally, or is it very specific to that type of trail? I suppose is what I'm asking. Or is there any facilities within the council district that would be of use to mountain bikers or to bikers generally? Not those bikers, but so is there anything else locally, or is it just the Gortin Glens that's promoted really?
Well, I suppose, Chair, within the council district, certainly Lough Navarre would be another key site. But in terms of Gortin, it would be certainly the only one in the Omagh part of the district. The next nearest site of scale and I suppose competitor in a way, but we seek to complement would be Dava. And then essentially there's and really what mountain biking do is they work across a network of sites across Northern Ireland. You'll have seen there includes Belfast, Ards and North Down, also Newry, and they then do Mid-Ulster, Fermanagh and Omagh. So they try and identify sites that are different levels of challenges so that the mountain biking fraternity move from site to site. There are other probably less challenging routes and areas available across the district, but my understanding from I suppose previously meeting with this group and receiving representations is a lot of the mountain bikers seek to go where there's more adrenaline runs, and Gortin Glens would be the probably the best site.
It seems to cater well for, thank you, Chief Executive, it seems to cater well for a range of abilities and levels of experience, which is a positive. That was some of the feedback I got. I'm sure other people have had maybe more interaction with the community than myself, but that was one thing that it was good for somebody maybe beginning as well as more experienced riders as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and just coming at this from a different angle, I do think that a lot of the mountain bike community are well enough equipped to do their own research about where they want to go next. They obviously are thrill seekers looking for the next place to get that buzz from the mountain bike trails. And as some others have said, you know, it's well established. Gortin Glen is getting a very good reputation. I was going to propose that we put this in abeyance for a year, that the money that is saved on this goes towards the Sperrins marketing budget, and that we do our own metrics in a year's time, that we know that this council would know where the visitor numbers are. They would see the increase in interest in mountain biking in Gortin just through ownership ourselves. Just to make that as a comment and see what members think. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Thompson, and then I'll just let
Chair, I'm sorry for coming on again, but I feel I must come on again. This has been an ongoing thing from 2013. 2013. 10 years ago, we first went to the Lake District to see what they had there with outdoor recreation in Northern Ireland. And it was a cross-party panel when I was chair of this council, Legacy Council. And what they had there, we were trying to almost mirror what they have at the Lake District that time. So I think it would be a lost opportunity if we don't pursue this now. But I take on board what Councillor Donnelly has said, and maybe it's an idea to meet up with the group as well and have conversations with them. But I'm happy enough to stick with my original proposal, Chair.
Okay.
Sorry for coming on again. Thank you.
Alison?
Chair, it was just a comment on the Sperrins marketing, and I suppose it was to note that the council has already made its provision for that, so we are meeting the requirements, so we wouldn't be enhancing that budget. Certainly if the council chose not to proceed and decommit these funds, then it would go into the central pot essentially. But I do think in the context of Councillor Armstrong's comments about the wider metrics and the engagement with the group, certainly that's something that could be facilitated over the next 12 months. I suppose the other element I would note, Chair, is that I think there will be a wider review of cross-council cooperation, particularly in relation to ORNI supported projects, of which this is one.
Okay, well, we do have it proposed and seconded, members, maybe with those slight amendments, just that we'd maybe meet with the group. Are members content with that, or will there be disagreement? Is that agreed? The recommendations? Okay, thank you, members. The next item, members, takes us on to 5.1, is to consider a report on the proposal for 2023-24 Department for Communities Hardship Funding and review of the cost of living support programme. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, it is a review of the 250,000 which the council members had allocated to cost of living crisis last year, and just to provide an update in relation to how that was, and also for a proposal for the hardship fund for this year, where DFC monies have been also allocated for the residents of our district. You will see in 1.2 there that it's stated that 21% of the population in the Fermanagh district is living in relative poverty against a regional rate of 17%. Actually, that figure has actually changed in the last number of days. In fact, it was just over the weekend where I became aware that that figure for the statistics for Fermanagh is actually 27%. So we are actually full 10 percentage points behind the regional rate of 17% of people living in relative poverty, and just gives you an indication of the crisis that we have effectively in our district. Support organisations are all that we work with, whether it be food banks or whatever, are reporting an increase in the number of clients that are impacted by the cost of living. Food bank referrals are increasing. The Women's Regional Consortium have indicated that they are facing increased difficulties in how to feed and support their families and themselves on a daily basis. Community Advice Fermanagh reports a 1,200% increase in clients presenting with rent arrears, and some facing repossession, a 600% increase in clients presenting with rates arrears. 23-24, as I've said, the DFC have offered the councils a hardship fund of 245,000, and they have said that this can be supported from underspends from other previous funds, other previous rounds, including the COVID support and social supermarket funding, and this allows for our council an additional 65,000 to provide a total fund for the 23-24 year of 310,000. Just going back to the 22-23 aid which we give to our communities, there was £250,000. Appendix 1 gives a detailed review of how that money was spent and how many people it benefit from it. In relation to fuel support, there was 80,000 provided to St Vincent de Paul. A total of 370 families and households were supported across the district, which equated to over 500 adults and again over 500 children. Additional food provision in schools, there was 35,000 provided for schools. 62 schools took up the offer, and which effectively there were over 14,000 young children and young people who received a benefit from the schools programme. One thing to point out, I suppose, is in relation to the free school meals entitlement. There is the limit on free school meals is £2.60. And it has been highlighted by school principals that the £2.60 is not enough to provide a substantial meal for any child in school. And indeed, the support which we give actually assisted schools in providing extra food for those children that the £2.60 per day wasn't able to cover. Our fund also, the 250,000, also provided for warm spaces. A total of 44 warm spaces were supported across all of the DEAs in the winter of last year. There was an emotional wellbeing programme where Inspire Wellbeing were appointed to a procurement process to deliver workshops to support people with signs and symptoms of stress, mental health issues, promote their wellbeing, emotional resilience. And I have to say that the messages coming back from those people who attended those sessions were very, very positive, and gives them a new lease and a new way of thinking about life in a positive manner, because often associated with fuel poverty, with food poverty, is that emotional well-being, where you feel down and so on. And I think that program was an excellent success. And we will have that program is still running, I have to say, but we will have somewhere in the region of 250 people who have been supported through it. In relation to community transport, we provided £20,000 to the two local community transport providers. There was funding of about 31,500 to the premises funds for help community groups and whatever mitigate against rising utility costs. Advice services, additional funding of £15,000 was provided to Community Advice Fermanagh and Oma Independent Advice Services, and this really did help them with the increase in the numbers of people who were contacting them. You will see there in the report that an increase of 24% in the number of inquiries in the period of January to March compared to the previous quarter. There was direct support for food banks, £12,000 directly to food banks. And you'll see there that in the period from October to March 22, the food banks supported almost 2,000 food parcels to households in our district. 2,000 and this is just a normal course of a 5-month period. There was funding of 10,000 provided to Southwest Age Partnership, which supported 32 older age people's groups, 900 participants in total over a 3-month period. So the 250,000, I think, for the decision of the council last year was one of the success stories, even though it was a sad story in a sense, but was one of the success stories of the council itself. The 310,000, there are proposals, and DFC have identified very strict regime and very, very strict what the money can be spent on in this year in terms of food and fuel support. And what we are proposing is that 155,000 would be allocated to a fuel support programme to support somewhere in the region of 775 households with home heating, each getting a value of £200. It has been rolled out last year successfully with St Vincent de Paul, and this would be the mechanism again, along with the Red Cross, that we would be anticipating that the programme would be rolled out. In relation to food support, it's proposed that 97,500 is allocated towards food support, with 70,000 of an allocation being made to the schools, because it was such a success in the schools last year. And that would cater for approximately 22,000 pupils who would benefit from the scheme. And a further 17,500 made available to the existing food banks in the district for those who are experiencing immediate food poverty, in order to support those. And another 10,000 to Southwest Age Partnership for the cost of living, similar to that again of last year, which was provided to Southwest Age Partnership for allocation to their clientele. it's proposed that an allocation of 33,000 is made available to Action for Children, the family support hubs in both Oma and Fermanagh, and the independent advice organisations, Community Advice Fermanagh and Oma Independent Advice Service. This would allow small grants of up to a maximum of £250 per family to be made for food or fuel or utility costs of those who are experiencing crisis financially. Early discussions with independent advice centres, this is not normally something that they have done in the past, but it would just be a fund in extreme circumstances where clientele would phone them, and if it were properly assessed by the independent advice services themselves, that there would be a small fund there to alleviate very immediate stress in terms of financial provision for families or clientele that would phone them. As last year, the communication, I suppose, of this out to the public is vital. Last year, we set up a distinct area on our website for where people could find out all the information, but not just all of the information that we as a council are providing, but all of the support that is available at a regional level. And we would anticipate that is continued in this financial year, and there would be all the use of the normal social media and key messaging through social media in order to inform residents of the support that is available. There is a leaflet, Worrying About Money, that is currently being produced in partnership with the Independent Food Aid Network, and that would be distributed on a district-wide basis also, signposting again the organisations who provide support and help, and again outreach events, which I have to say last year in both the main towns in Oma and Enniskillen, and indeed in the rural areas, was very, very successful, organised by our community services officers and environmental health officers, and bringing in a range of partners from the public sector in providing advice as to how to manage finances. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council notes the update and evaluation on the cost of living support programme for 2022-23, approves the allocation of financial support of 155,000 towards a fuel support programme in partnership with St Vincent de Paul and the Red Cross, approves the delivery of a programme of support for access to food initiatives in schools at an estimated cost of £70,000, approves the provision of a programme for additional food support in partnership with the local established food banks St Vincent de Paul and the Red Cross and South West Aged Partnership at an estimated cost of £27,500, approves the provision of financial support of £33,000 for discretionary support fund to the Action for Children family support hubs and the local independent advice organisations, approves the employment of a coordinator to support the delivery of the measures identified. And I suppose this is a new measure this year in that what we were finding is that it was actually very, very difficult to manage the process of the rollout of the monies. And I think an extra person, and there is an allowance within the DFC monies for 10% of those monies could be used in order to provide assistance for the rollout of the measures. And what we are requesting is an approval for the employment of a coordinator to help manage that process. Approves a range of measures, including outreach events in partnership with the statutory and community and voluntary sector partners to be undertaken to ensure effective communication on the key messages and that the support is easily accessible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. And members, we've heard the recommendations. We'll go to Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. I want to propose the adoption of the recommendation. Now, there's several elements to the recommendation. The one that maybe did concern me was point 6. John has begun to explain it. Why is there the need for a coordinator to support the delivery of the measures identified? Could that post not have come from existing resources within the council? It's an obvious challenge question, that seeking assurance that the employment of a coordinator is absolutely required, that it couldn't be done within council staff resourcing at this time. So that's one question. But last year's package agreed in October. It was co-designed with groups out there in the community. You might say people were consulted. So, and I know this has been informed by that whole experience. There's no doubt about that. So it will make a difference, and it needs to make a difference. and it does need to help the most vulnerable in our community in the most effective way. The report also addresses the scale of poverty and acknowledges that working families are suffering poverty as well, and that we're above the regional average for children and young people and for families in general. So looking at the whole package, couple of questions, because I'm supportive of the majority of the measures. You know, they're well thought out. You know, I'm just wondering, could there have been any acknowledgement of people who suffer disabilities and who, for example, their electric bill is sky high because they're using electrified equipment at night, say, for example, for respiratory problems? You know, we've heard that. We heard that at the Access and Inclusion Forum. You know, we heard that directly from people. Also, holiday hunger has been mentioned, but there isn't anything in there to deal with holiday hunger. And, you know, I was wondering if, for example, summer schemes in neighbourhood renewal areas or summer schemes more generally, there could have been food provided in association with summer schemes. So I'm happy to propose the adoption of the recommendation, but I do have some questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McElduff. Sean?
Yeah, Chair, if you want to come in on the three questions effectively, the one about the coordinator, members will be aware that during the estimates process that it was every post was looked at, and every post that wasn't needed was actually cut out of the process. So we are actually running on the bare minimum of what we are in order to deliver the normal services that we would normally provide. Members will also be aware that we are working on the long-term strategy in relation to food poverty. This is firefighting effectively. But what we need to do within the district is to build a long-term strategy, anti-poverty strategy, and work is ongoing on that. And we did employ last year, out of existing resources, we employed an anti-poverty officer. And that person is engaged, has drawn up largely the proposals that are here, but is also now working on the long-term strategy, which is an important piece of work in order to make sure that we find some sort of lasting resolution to poverty in our district. In order to deliver this programme, that work will have to go by the way ahead, and I don't believe that is the way ahead. I think we should be working on the long-term strategy at the same time as rolling out this. So I think the employment of the coordinator is actually vital in order to make sure the success. I think the coordinator also, I think what we're hoping to do is that we will identify other funds, or try and identify other funds in order to boost this 310,000 that we have got. And so the more staff that we have in order to do that, could actually pay off more dividends than actually £24,500 that we're planning to spend on the coordinator itself, and hopefully it would be a payback position. In relation to could there have been any acknowledgement of people who are suffering from disabilities? Very difficult to define those in a sense. And what we can do as part of our promotional campaign is ensure that they are part of the programme or part of the measures that are here and that they are homed in on. As a council, I suppose, it would be very difficult for us to put a figure on the numbers of people who need extra utility costs because they need their wheelchair or whatever charged and things like that. So what we would do is encourage those people to get involved in the programme as it is, and all our support workers and all our agencies that we work with, that they would be encouraged to contact those people and apply for it through the process that we have here. In relation to holiday hunger and summer schemes, no, it isn't something that we have provided. We could actually take some monies out of that £70,000. We have a defined pot. We could take some monies out of that £70,000 that is provision for schools. The schools have actually seen the real benefit of it, but they would say that what we provided last year wasn't sufficient. You know, that they ran out of their breakfast clubs and things like that, so they did during the year, and the support that we give them was absolutely vital. So I suppose if there is a decision that we want to fund some of the summer schemes, then yes, certainly we can adjust the proposal in order to do that.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Withers at this stage. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'll second the recommendations, and I want to thank John and the staff involved for developing the programme. The measures outlined will be welcomed by many in the community. I think certainly, as John said there from last year, was very welcome. The measures that were introduced last October, and I think that went down well, so this will be the same. I know over the last 18 months we've seen soaring energy prices, rising interest rates and overall inflation, and I suppose that's been deeply frustrating that we continue to be at the mercy of the Tory government in London and their austerity budget from the Secretary of State, all the while the institutions here remain down, and we don't have a functioning assembly that can actually intervene and I suppose in some respects be able to intervene and prioritise the most vulnerable in society here. I think one of the striking examples of that is the holiday payments programme being withdrawn, and now we'll have children, and as outlined in the report there, 1 in 5 children facing poverty, so they will now be suffering over the summer with going hungry. I think as also mentioned there, the free school meals allocation is not adequate, so it's welcome intervention there in the food provision. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Adam Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, John, for that excellent report and excellent run through the support that we have provided and will hopefully provide when this is all confirmed and approved. I think it's really important that people see the good that the council can do and the force for good that the council can be in our society as a whole. Too often we see the council just get bashed, but in reality there's really good work going on. I hope media outlets and people on social media pick up on some of the really good stuff that we are doing, such as this. And I know many people in my own DEA in Earn West really benefited from this in the last year. It was really useful to be able to signpost them to these groups for support that we knew there'd be funding for. In particular, the fuel support was one that I know many constituents find very, very useful. And I think the discretionary support here is very important because people don't always fit into the nice tick box exercise of meeting criteria for certain support, and it's good to have that flexibility for those groups. But I'm picking up kind of on what Barry was saying there around using the summer schemes. I don't know if that would be the best use of it, simply because we have limited funding and we need to target those most in need, and people who maybe aren't in as much need are attending the summer scheme and would avail of it. Now, it definitely has its merits. I'm not saying it's a dreadful idea. I'm just kind of having a bit of a discussion about it, and I think we need to think about doing this really in a targeted manner. I do think schools, maybe I'm biased as working in education, but I do think schools are a good outlet because they know who is in need of, who is a free school meal recipient. They know if there's issues in the home. Quite often that means that pupils may be hungry, and they have that level, and staff have that level of pastoral training to be able to identify those in need who maybe haven't been caught so far. I know I myself have done that in regards to issues within schools before. So I don't know if the summer schemes is the best approach because I don't think it's necessarily targeted correctly. I don't know. I'm not trying to shoot you down, just having a wee bit of discussion about it. But look, I'm interested to hear what everyone else thinks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dan Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you, John, for this comprehensive report. It's very sobering to read the need, and the need has expanded, has grown. But I just wanted to ask a couple of questions, John. The funding that's being given, that funding is going directly into those support schemes, not into admin of it with any of the organisations. Yeah, that's reassuring. Thank you. And also, when we talk about fuel support, I remember when this came up before, I was asking you about the conferences and with St Vincent de Paul, and that's why I remember it. Did council contact Red Cross before, and has the position changed? I thought that we were talking with Red Cross before. Did they help with the distribution of fuel support in the previous funding round that was provided, and how well equipped are they to do the same? That's my two questions.
Thank
Thank you.
Chair, yes, in relation to the fuel support, we contracted last year with St Vincent de Paul. We had initial conversations with the Red Cross, but St Vincent de Paul were in a position at that stage, and because of the timing as to when we approved it in October of last year, and we had to roll it out pretty quickly, St Vincent de Paul were the best mechanism. We have been in conversation with the Red Cross, and they are certainly, yes, they have the mechanism, as we have assured. In fact, all of the funding that we have noted, we have made sure that the proper governance exists in those organisations to ensure that the money is directly spent on the people that need it most, and that they have the proper mechanism for triage and all of that sort of thing, in order to make sure that those who are the most need in our society meet that need, or get the. So the Red Cross certainly have those systems in place now, and are more than willing participants.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, John, for the report. Generally supportive of the report and the recommendations. Just a couple of queries, and I know Councillor McAduff referred to the coordinator. Are we talking about a full-time position there, or is that reduced hours, or what sort of hours are you talking there in the week?
We're talking full-time position from now until the end of the year. So we are, because by the time we appoint someone, it will probably be September now. So we're talking about a 7-month period or whatever for a person.
Okay, and the other query I had was to do with, I know Councillor McAduff referred to it again, with regard to the summer schemes. I think we need to be careful when we talk about our neighbourhood renewal in general, that there are areas out there are just as, deprivation is as bad in some of these areas. That is the case in neighbourhood renewal areas. I think we need to be careful on that one, because if we target everything into neighbourhood renewal, there's going to be a lot of people losing out. So that's just my own feelings on that one, but I'm generally supportive of the recommendations. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And these recommendations are broadly incredibly welcome. Not least just given the context of the fact that even since last year, the macroeconomic picture for our society has in many ways deteriorated, and you still see many working families and indeed spending a significant amount of money to be able to make ends meet, and people are struggling, certainly. The question that I suppose kind of comes to my mind when I'm looking through this is just in terms of the piece around the discretionary support that will be coming in from the independent advice services sector. I appreciate that there will have been engagement between the sector and council, I imagine, in sort of drafting this. I suppose I'm aware of it, just the significantly good work that both Community Advice Fermanagh and OMA Independent Advice Services does, but I imagine that it's a relatively small team. And I suppose the only question that I would just ask is just in terms of processing this, that are we confident that there is just that capacity there? And indeed, is there actually a role, I suppose, for this new coordinator, just in ensuring that just getting this off the ground, that actually there's a smooth transition, just in terms of making sure that these payments go out as needed?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Chair, I suppose the role of the coordinator is solely to make sure that every one of these schemes are rolled out appropriately, and that proper governance is in place in each of them. The independent advice services, the provision of funding for them to give, and I have to say these are very emergency payments. That if someone phones them and they are in desperate need, and there's a very quick assessment, there will be a very small payment made in order to alleviate those people who are in very, very dire need at that point in time. So it's an immediate fund, rather than having to go through a longer process of triage, which they will ultimately be forwarded on to with some of the other providers that are listed here, whether it be St Vincent de Paul or whatever, or indeed other agencies outside of the partners which we are funding here. So, and we have had discussions with the advice services, and they are happy in order to take on that role. But yes, certainly the role of the coordinator will be to ensure that that smooth transition actually takes place, and that all the proper governance is in place to make sure that those most in need actually get that help.
Thank you. And Councillor McColgan.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, John, and welcome to the report. And from my local knowledge, I can testify that this fund will be greatly welcomed by local groups and by the communities who have benefited and will benefit from it. And also would like to applaud organisations like St Vincent de Paul and the Red Cross and those who do such great work in this area. I can also see the importance of, as John mentioned earlier, the creation of a long-term strategy for this, because I don't imagine that things are going to get better anytime soon. Personally, I believe this will be some of the best spent and most necessary money that we'll approve this year. And again, thanks to the report and support the recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, members. It is proposed and seconded. Councillor McElduff, just around the issue at the schools.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to propose the 7 recommendations, the 7 elements of the recommendation. Just on the schools, I actually agree with Councillor Gannon that it is very effective targeting of 70,000 for schools, affecting, positively impacting on 22,000. I think what the figure is, like these open fridges and various facilities like that in schools. So at no stage would I anticipate that any money should be taken from the 70k pot. Maybe that's a discussion for neighbourhood renewal itself. The other discussion about impacting in neighbourhood renewal areas separately. Just on the emergency payment to be delivered via the independent advice networks, I think that's a good thing too. As a public representative in Omagh, I have witnessed people who you almost felt were dying of poverty. When you were in their presence, in their family home, when you were talking to people, you actually thought that they were dying of poverty. And in one case that I'm thinking of right now, the family were suffering because the adult in the family could not access universal credit. It was like several weeks away before they were going to get their first universal credit payment, and they were literally dying of hunger and dying of poverty. So I can understand the urgency of and the emergency need in many cases of that £50 payment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members. So we're agreed on that. Thank you. That's passed. We'll move to item 5.2 in your agenda, is to consider a report on the proposal for use of social supermarket support funding from Department for Communities. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. And this is in the same vein as the last discussion, in a sense, in dealing with poverty and trying to address it in a more holistic manner than just provision of food or provision of finances for fuel or whatever, in looking at the whole needs of those who are in need within our district. You will see there that there's a report that was published very recently by the Trussell Trust, and it says that 7% of households across Northern Ireland accessing support from a food bank are accessing support from a food bank or a social supermarket. And if you apply those rates to Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, that would mean that 18,770 people in the district experience food insecurity. And that's defined as running out of food, or being able to afford more, or having reduced meal sizes, or going without a meal, or something like that as a family. That's 18, almost 19,000 people across our district. The social supermarket model, in a sense, offers a longer term solution, or tries to provide a longer term solution to sustainable food insecurity by looking at the root causes of that of poverty. And we have actually gone and seen where because DFC introduced this model in 2016, and we went to see a social supermarket model in the Derry and Strabane district council area. And that model was where there was a cafe and people came in, off the street. You could go in and there was a food bank out the back. But as part of that, there was an advice service there, which if you wanted to discuss whether it be food, whether it be your benefits, whether it be social security, whether it be whatever, that you were given advice there, but you were also referred on to another agency, and your hand was held effectively as you went through those agencies. That model may not work in our district because of the fact of the rural nature of our district is somewhat different. Last year we got funding, you may remember, from DFC in order to carry out a pilot. And in June of last year, we seeked expressions of interest, or we got approval from council here to seek expressions of interest from community and voluntary organisations in supporting that pilot. We got 5 organisations to operate the pilots: the old courthouse in Kesh, Lakeland Community Care in Belcoo, the Ark Healthy Living Centre, the Oak Healthy Living Centre, and Oma Community House. And we issued service levels agreements to those and started a social supermarket pilot project with each of them. In accordance with the funding from DFC, we also appointed to a procurement process Venture International to manage that process and to provide a report on the back of it. And the report you will see is included in Appendix 1 of the report. Oma Community House withdrew from the project because of capacity, and you will see in section 2.9 the outcome of the 4 remaining pilot programs and what they did in relation to the social supermarket project. Taking the learnings from that and taken into the rurality of our district, the consultations that have taken place in relation to it, we are recommending that an external delivery body, a single organisation or a group of organisations coming together under one body, is procured by the council to provide a single point of contact for a district-wide social supermarket model for this year. And that's largely because of the rural nature of our district. It's not possible to provide support through a whole network of social supermarket premises, and it is better to have one central coordinator in order to manage the process. That body we're anticipating will be responsible for identifying and targeting households. So if you want to talk about those who are most in need, from talking to community representatives, from looking in neighbourhood renewal areas or whatever, they will identify households, identify people who are impacted by food insecurity, assess the need on an individual household basis, develop a plan for personalised support for that client household. And that's not provision of food, because we're dealing with that through the hardship fund, but it's provision of more long-term sustainable answers to the food insecurity. Where the household is experiencing immediate need, there will be an emergency food support that will be available through the social supermarket programme, or indeed through a referral to a food bank, or indeed through St Vincent de Paul or those other agencies that we spoke about previously. And that relationship between this one-off provider and all of those agencies, whether it be food banks, St Vincent de Paul, the Red Cross, and indeed regional organisations, that they will establish very strong relationships with those and build up a network of support services. There will be monthly meetings with council officers anticipated to provide information on the outcomes of it, on number of people that they're supporting, and indeed the eventual outcomes of that at the year end. And we would hope to provide again at the end of the year a success or a report here to committee on the success of the project. If we get council approval, we'll complete the procurement process in next month, with a view to that delivery body being operational by September of this year. We have been allocated funding of 95,000 for the 23-24 year. We have received, or we are due to receive 50% of that, but we are assured that we will receive the full 95,000. And it is anticipated that we will receive a similar amount in the 24-25 year, because this is more longer term in nature and it's not just an emergency support, but it is trying to see, can a process be set up in order to help with that long-term aspect of provision. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council notes the evaluation of the social supermarket pilot which took place last year and approves the Department of Community social supermarket funding of 95,000 is used to support an external delivery body to deliver the preferred model of support for food insecurity in the district.
Thanks again,
Chair.
Sean, for that report. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, John, for that report. Just a number of questions and queries. The first one, I've seen somewhere where it mentioned the co-design. Who are they, or what did the co-design mean, or what were they? Another one of the questions is, when is this funding that we could have accessed before, or is this new funding? Has this been on the go in previous years and we are only doing this now, or is it funding that is new and this is a new process? The third thing, why are we going to tender for an outside body to come in to do this? I would presume that there's a possibility there that, which has happened before, some organisation from Belfast or Derry takes this up and has absolutely no idea of our council region, comes in and actually only annoys and comes across other organisations that's already doing good work in the community. For instance, the 4 or 5 ones that did the pilot thing. Why is the council not administering this scheme instead of going out to tender and getting them bodies to run it on the ground? Just a few of them type of things, and I might want to come in again if Chair's approval.
John, on that stage, John.
Chair, co-design was very much open to the community and voluntary sector, and that the model of delivery which we've seen in the last financial year was actually in collaboration with the food banks, with the healthy living centres, and with the community and voluntary sector. So the models which were delivered was very much in conjunction with the community and voluntary sector. Is this new funding? Yes, it is. Last year there was funding for the pilot projects. Funding has been provided, like I said, since 2016 in other areas. We're talking in Derry City and Strabane and Belfast City Council for the social supermarket model, and the attempt now is to roll it out across the full region. And there is an acknowledgement from DFC that the likes of councils such as Fermanagh and Omagh District Council, that model which has been delivered in Belfast and in Derry City and Strabane is totally different from what we would deliver here because of the rural setup of our network. For those who are experiencing difficulty in rural areas, to have a one-stop shop in every village or whatever just won't be possible, and you wouldn't get value out of that. And that's why we're planning to have one external agency effectively to be the one-stop shop. Why are we going to tender for an outside body? I suppose what we are looking for, and it might not be a body, but it might be a consortium of bodies which are in the region here, and we would encourage organisations to actually collaborate together. And we will have discussions with the community and voluntary sector in this regard to collaborate together and actually do this themselves from people within the district. Certainly there will be a criteria on which it will be assessed, and that will be knowledge of the rurality on the issues that affect our council region as a whole here, and that it won't be a model that is delivered in other parts such as Derry City and Strabane. Why is the council not administering the scheme? We genuinely do feel that there are organisations out there who can bring added value to what we're actually proposing here. I think, if for us to deliver it, we will again need to go out and employ staff. And I think what we are trying to do is get those organisations who actually have experience in dealing with these sorts of issues on the ground, and to add value to what we are actually proposing here within the district.
Okay, thanks for now, John. We'll go to Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Again, this is going to become a very good scheme. I suppose on the back of what Councillor Green was saying, I would be questioning the DFC funding of 95,000 to be given out for somebody, and I see here that accounting direction has been issued from DFC. So is that saying we have to spend that 95,000 on administration and what have you? It just seems that 95,000, if you put it into the pot, would add quite a bit of benefit to the pot going forward. And I think certainly I would like to see maybe more involvement in house. But if you're saying that we can't do it in house, well, that's that. But as the 95,000, quite a bit of money, and would be quite beneficial to the initial pot, I would have said.
Yeah, Chair, the 95,000 actually is the pot for the social supermarket. It's a totally different scheme than the hardship fund, which we discussed in the last report. And like I say, it is for the longer term solutions to food insecurity. So it isn't about provision of food. The hardship fund deals with that. This is about trying to ensure that people who present with food insecurity actually are supported through their benefits and through all of the other issues that they may have, whether it be emotional well-being or whatever, in order to provide longer term solutions to them. And like I say, I think it provides better added value for those people to come and to deliver that process. And there are people within our community who can actually do this. And deliver very much value added benefit to our district.
Okay. Well, we'll bring in Councillor Thompson just at this point.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks, John, again for the report. Well, I do welcome this report, and I welcome the recommendation. The only question I would have on it is, I know that you had mentioned earlier on there about Dublin Community House pulling out of the pilot before. Did you give any specific reasons for that, or is that? Can you elaborate a wee bit more?
I think it was just in relation to capacity. There's a lot going on in Oma Community House with the establishment of the Healthy Living Centre, and I think they were largely involved in that aspect. So they were and concentrated on that rather than on this project.
I suppose my only concern there was that obviously we're the largest district here in Northern Ireland, and it's quite a stretch from one end of it to the other. I think it's somebody says 63 miles or something to get there. That's quite a stretch for if we have no one in the Oma area to do this sort of work. And I suppose the recommendation sort of broadens that out, and you're looking at a partnership and a collaboration between people. I think that's to be welcomed. I think that's what we're about anyway. And I'd be happy enough to support the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Are you proposing that, Councillor?
Yeah, I'll propose the recommendation.
And Councillor Gannon?
Thank you, Chair. I have many of the same concerns as Councillor Green expressed there. I think there is a risk if you go out to procurement getting a group from outside the area with no local knowledge, no local network, no local links. And when it comes to identifying people on the ground, you really need that bit of local knowledge whether it's with community groups or whatever other body there. I think that's a real risk of you might get some positive result. You probably still would get positive result if that was the case, but you're missing out on a much better potential outcome if we had it as a local group delivering this. And I think part of the problem of this is we're looking at a single body to do for the whole area. And there still is very much a Fermanagh and Omagh divide in terms of the networks and communities there. That's just a natural divide of the county boundaries and things like that. And even if you got a Fermanagh group, would they have the networks in Omagh? If you had an Omagh group, would they have the networks in the Fermanagh area? It's a real concern, and it's happened with previous funding. It's happened with other like rural community networks. And I think that local knowledge is so important. I would just a question around if we were to deliver it ourselves and if that's feasible to do with the restraints, if there's any restraints on the funding, what would be the additional cost to the council? Because I would imagine this 90,000, some of that would be used by the groups as administration costs for their staffing or to help fund their staffing for this. And I'm just wondering, what would be the direct cost to us if we decide to take it on ourselves? And is it possible to, in the procurement, have it as an essential criteria that you must demonstrate extensive local network? I don't think it necessarily is, legally speaking, but I'll ask the question anyway, that they must just demonstrate that they have this local network and knowledge there. So just those two questions, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gannon.
Chair, in relation to the direct cost to us, we haven't assessed that yet. We haven't assessed it. And I do think inherent in this is the ability for whatever organisation or organisations who come together in order to deliver it, that they have to be able to show the ability to work collaboratively with all of the other partners in the district who provide such support to those in need, whether it be food banks, whether it be social services or social security or aid organisations or all of those sorts of things. That has to be a prerequisite for any assessment of an agency. And it doesn't really matter whether you have the local knowledge or not, because those local organisations that the food banks and so on will have that local knowledge. We ourselves will have the local knowledge to an element. And the coordinator that I speak about in the previous hardship fund, between that person and the anti-poverty officer, that they will also work in unison with this organisation in order to try and ensure that those most in need. We will be identifying areas through, and there is also the University of Ulster report, which identifies areas within our district which are in very high levels of deprivation, and we will be concentrating on those initially in order to make sure that those get prominence in any arrangement that is put in place.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Well, we have two councillors looking in that have already been in. So I'll just go to you, Councillor Gannon. You were on that issue. So
just to make a quick proposal in relation to this, that when this goes out for procurement, that we write to any and all local groups that may be suitable providers of this, to stress that this is an opportunity for them to deliver and work with the council collaboratively, just to encourage that more local networking. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green's coming on the second here now for me.
Well, no, I'm not. I'll reserve judgment on the whole thing. I was being quite reassured to John's last contribution there, and then any reassurance ahead then fell away very drastically when he said that, these groups that coming in could use all of these internal bodies to gather local knowledge. And I know of this exact type of thing happening before, where groups came in from Derry and Belfast and tried to use the local knowledge and really only rub people up the wrong way on it. They weren't fit for purpose. But in a procurement thing, as we all know, it's what you put down on the paper. It's what the wee tick boxes that you tick, and you can have somebody from Derry that'll tick all them wee boxes, and there is not one thing that the council can do as long as all them boxes are ticked. And there's no way of knowing whether they're been fit to be done or not until the thing's over when it's too late. And I'm just wondering, have we to go out to procurement? Can we delegate this? I can't see how it'd cost the council that much money if we're already going to be meeting the groups every month and going over it, as John had said earlier. We have a number of groups there interested. Can we not administer the fund through these groups and let them at it? We know them groups are doing fantastic work out in the community already, but if this ends up turning into, and that's why I have no notion of seconding this, if these groups from outside the area comes in and ends up getting this, I really don't want to have anything to do with it. I just think it's a disaster waiting to happen. And just another thing, can John just clarify? From 2016, Belfast and Derry and Strabane councils were getting this money, and now we are only getting it now. Is that the case? And was that is that even legal? Is that even how in the name of God did that happen?
Okay, we'll bring in John and
these are all pilot projects, I suppose, in a sense, and that's how it can happen. And DFC rolled out the project. Now, we have been talking about social supermarkets, and in fact, there have been a number of reports that have been brought through committee here in relation to social supermarket projects, in anticipation of what we are actually presenting here tonight. So there have been in the past pilot projects in Belfast and Derry City and Strabane. And I suppose they'd be welcome that they're rolling out to ourselves here now.
Stage, Alice.
Chair, I was just going to make a suggestion if it was in any way helpful to members, and I think the comments regarding the delivery model are certainly, fully understood and well made. But as John has indicated in the report, there is an urgency about getting this progressed, and what may be an option is that we would proceed to draft the documentation around procurement. Within that, part of it will obviously have to be how a local delivery model will be achieved that actually meets the outcomes of the council and the overall funding requirements. And in parallel, we can look at what an internal delivery option would be. We haven't costed it. We don't know what it looks like. And as has already been mentioned in relation to the previous measures, we are certainly under-resourced in this area. If it was something that we were going to prioritise delivery of, we would be seeking something to stop doing. But I think in that way, you're at least allowing a process to start. I think that there is no reason to assume local groups will not apply for this. So my inclination would be to start. Once you start a procurement process, you're under no obligation to award it to anyone, and we could look at alternative arrangements. We're coming back in September, obviously, to report to you, and we could have that work completed. Just a suggestion.
Okay, I think members are happy with that. As a proposer, happy to incorporate that, what Alison said, and have we a seconder for that overall? Someone to second overall, please. Councillor Gannon. And all agreed. Thank you. And 5.3 members is to consider report of the Director of Community and Wellbeing. That's paper D. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's two elements to it. One is to seek approval for financial support towards a junior park run in Omagh. In 2018, Council provided £3,000 to support the establishment of a junior park run in Enniskillen, and this is just but this is the provision of a similar initiative in Omagh. The second element is a proposal for a visit to St Sidwell's Point Leisure Centre in Exeter. Members will be aware that since Sidwell's has been mentioned before in the chamber on many occasions as the only operational passive house leisure centre in the UK, and they have made an invitation in order for a visit for officers to go and gain an understanding on what works well in a passive house leisure centre, issues with regard to construction, issues with regards to operation, and just to see actually the figures that are associated now that it has been operational for over a year. So, Chair, it's recommended that the Council approves the financial support of up to £3,000 available to establish a junior park run in Omagh, and secondly, approves 2 Council officers to visit Sidwell's Point Leisure Centre, Exeter, to inform the full business case for the redevelopment of the Fermanagh Lakeland Forum.
Thank you, John. There's 2 recommendations, members. Councillor Withers.
Margaret Carley, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to propose both recommendations. Park Run is a great initiative, and I know it's been successful in both Omagh and Enniskillen, so I'm very supportive of the funding being made available for the junior park run, which will encourage children to be more active and help with their overall health and well-being. And I also want to take this chance just to thank the park run volunteers that show up on a weekly basis in Omagh and Enniskillen to ensure the event takes place. I'm also aware that there's been some discussions with council staff about the condition of the running track at Omagh Leisure Centre, and some concerns were raised previously about the maintenance of the track and water being logged on it. And obviously, as we're heading in now to the later in the summer and into the winter again, I'd just be keen to see if there was any update with either John or Alison just on that, and if there's any been progress on it. And then secondly, I'd also just like to propose that the council review the existing athletics facilities that are available within the district area and how that compares to other areas and what is provided by other councils. I know local groups like Omagh Harriers and Carmen Runners and the End of the One Foundation are all doing some great work on the ground, but all of that does require sustainable facilities, and the development of talent requires facilities as well. So I would just make that as a proposal as well, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to second that, and indeed to also second the additional proposal that's been made by Councillor Withers. I mean, I think that if we look at the original park run scheme that's been established in Omagh, it's been an overwhelming success, not just in terms of the objective of making sure that good and positive physical and mental well-being has been promoted, but also in the sense that it's actually brought an increasing number of people into the district. I mean, quite regularly, the Omagh Park Run will not just attract people from the likes of Lisburn and Belfast, but indeed from as far afield as London and Brighton. So it's very much helped to put Omagh on the map, as well as to promote physical and mental well-being. And I think that it would be really positive to actually see this particular initiative up and running, which would be much more directed towards engaging the health and well-being of younger people within our district. So more than happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Sure. Happy enough to support the recommendations, and just with regard to Councillor Withers' point about the various groups, I had the pleasure of arranging the first meeting with the groups. Councillor Withers joined us then, which was very welcome, and we had cross-party support on that one. And I do welcome maybe a report coming back and see how we could work with these groups, and I'll support his proposals there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor McElduff.
Just the element of Councillor Withers' contribution there regarding the track. Is there any update on that? Because the state of the track quite often in the winter is such that it's flooded significantly at the location where the park run assembles, where it starts, where it finishes, just exactly at that location. And every participant in it mentions it, jumping over the puddles, trying to leapfrog over the puddles. They all mention it, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world that needs to be addressed. So just if there is any update on work being undertaken to resolve that, to remedy that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Chair, just in relation to the track, in investigation work, I have to say, is still going on in relation to the causing of the blockage for the water that lies on the track, and it is something that we will have remedied in time for the autumn time when we expect the rain, to come, and it is something that we do hope that we will have sorted in time for that, and we'll bring a report through once the issue has been sorted.
Thank you, and Councillor Armstrong.
you, Chair, and as a lapsed park run runner, I won't declare an interest in that. But if I could just, if you could grant me a little latitude, please, Chair, I just wanted to ask the Director about St Michael's Tartan Track and how that is being used. It was envisaged it would be opened up to running clubs. If we could have a report back on the usage, the success of St Michael's Tartan Track, please. Thank you.
Yeah,
Do
Chair.
you want to give an update or bring back something?
No, we can bring back a report. I know there was a report provided very recently there to Sport NI in relation because as the funder, as part funder of the project. So certainly we can share that report too with members also.
Thank you. That's great, John. Okay, members, I think that's all passed and agreed along with the Councillor Willer's proposal as well. Thank you. Item 6 now, our reports for information. 6.1 is to note update report on labour market partnership.
Thank you, Chair. Just really in summary, members will be aware from previous correspondence the funding on this was paused. We then got subsequent correspondence from DFC to say the following receipt of the EQIAs and consideration of responses, they are reinstigating the funding at the current financial year levels, which is welcome. However, it is only in place until the end of March of next year, and we have been advised to expect significant reductions beyond that. So I think this is a temporary reprieve, but a welcome one nonetheless. And you'll have seen just, Chair, within the report, we do need to undertake some procurement really to ensure the action plan previously agreed by the Labour Market Partnership can be undertaken within this financial year.
Okay, just for note, members, Councillor Gannon.
Just a quick question. Obviously, the financial and 3.1 on the report states that the finances are based off 7 million, but as anticipated, it will be reduced to 5.5. I assume that the costs as laid out will be decreased proportionately if it's down. Yeah, I can see nodding. Thank you, Chair. That'll do.
Yes, absolutely. And just to reiterate, Chair, we wouldn't obviously commit any expenditure until a formal letter of offer is received.
Okay. And Councillor Armstrong.
Chair, just pleased to see this being able to be implemented and just happy to second the report.
Okay, you'll propose, Councillor Gannon. Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Thank you. Okay, members. And 6.2 is to note the report of Director of Regeneration and Planning.
Yes, Chair, really just 3 elements. Firstly, the update on letters of variance received, update on the Peace Plus programme and proposed arrangements for business case and economic appraisals over the summer months and the recommendations detailed then in section 8.
Thank you, Alison. Councillor Green.
I propose the recommendations just to mention about the Peace Plus money and all that's coming through. I think it's very welcome to see it all coming through, and it'd be great if we had as many shovel-ready projects ready for these this money coming as possible. And I suppose it was one of the things that I was interested in oversight committee of the capital projects, that we really do try to encourage as many things to be shovel ready as possible, so that we're ahead of the curve rather than lagging behind, in this, and it possibly as a way of getting as much money out of this as possible. The last thing we want to be doing is not spending what we're going to get.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson.
Sorry, Chair, I should have done it at the start, like Councillor Armstrong was declaring interest in the Peace Plus.
Okay,
I remember that.
I'll take that.
Thank you.
Just a seconder, members, for that report, please. Councillor Donnelly has us light on, just.
No, I mean, I've literally only just joined it, but I may as well declare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seconder, Councillor Rainey. Thank you. Okay. We'll move on to 7. Now 7.1 is to note the report environmental health delegated decision record, quarter 4 and quarter 1. John, just for noting as well.
Yeah, Chair, it's just the standard quarterly report for noting.
Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Warrington, seconded. Councillor Thompson. Thank you. Item 8 is your correspondence, members. 8.1 is correspondence dated the 16th of June from PSNI regarding the launch of the Police Service of Northern Ireland Children and Young People Strategy. That's for noting as well, members, please. Councillor Rainey, and a seconder. Seconder, please, to note that, members. Councillor Armstrong, thank you. 8.2 is correspondence dated the 28th of June from NI Water regarding the Drinking Water Quality Report 2022. That's for noting as well, members. Councillor Green.
Just maybe you give me a wee bit, and I propose that for noting, but a wee bit of leeway on it. Remember, 6-9 months ago, or maybe it's more, could be near a year ago, when we had the Department of Infrastructure Minister John O'Dowd in, and we put it to him about, remember the presentation we got in the chamber of from, I think it was NIW, who was saying about I think it was a 2 billion 5-year upgrade on sewage and water infrastructure in the north, and of the 2 billion we ended up with, I think it was 0.6%. And when we asked how did that happen, the minister at the time told us that we should contact I think it was an oversight group. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was proposed that we would invite them in to the chamber so that we could question them on it. I haven't heard anything as long time on that. Is there any progress report on that, on us getting them in? Because I would really be anxious to question them on just how that got through, that we got 0.6% of a £2 billion budget in the biggest geographical area in 6 counties.
Alison?
Yeah, Chair, follow up directly. My recollection, the utility regulator, I think it was, had the oversight. We did write to them. We wrote, first of all, the minister had also said that he may be minded to review the methodology, but then ultimately those investment plans had the utility regulator oversight. They wrote, and I think indicated there would be a willingness to meet. And would we combine it with other matters, because we'd been writing to them on a variety, and we responded in the affirmative, I think. But I'll check the status of it. I think there was a willingness on their behalf, but if we'll certainly check on that, Chair, and we'll share the correspondence as well in advance.
Okay, thank you. And just a seconder then for that report, please, members. Councillor Gannon, thank you. There is one other piece, 8.3 from Ulster Scots Agency for Newton John. Yeah, kind of a proposer, Councillor Thompson, and seconder, please, Councillor Stephen Donald. Thank you. That's all the correspondence. Is that correct, John?
Yeah.
Okay, members. Any urgent, relevant business? I had been contacted by a few councillors. I think Councillor Devine Gallagher, were you first? Were you looking at an item tonight? A proposal that we write to the... Do you want to just raise that now? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Post COVID-19 pandemic, the Ashes Centre helped deliver vital support to help people with alcoholic and substance addictions. The service provided AA and NA meetings. They also provided meditation, yoga, choir, the use of gym equipment. These services are vital to help with the recovery of those who have an addiction. Monday nights are an open meeting for all AA members. Tuesday mornings are meditation for all AA members. Tuesday nights are for women, only AA members. And Wednesday night are for men, only AA members. Thursday nights are for all AA members, and Friday nights are for all AA and NA members. Saturday mornings, 2 members from an AA give a talk to inpatients and past patients from the Ashes Centre. From post-pandemic till 2 months ago, I'm very nervous. From post-pandemic to 2 months ago, the only service that's been put back into place is a Saturday morning where 2 AA members give a talk to inpatients and past patients. A constituent has made contact with me and expressed their concern as to why this service is still not up and running to the way it was post-pandemic, and has informed me 4 members have lost their lives who were attending these services, and went as far to say that the loss of these services has contributed to their deaths. The building is already there to deliver this vital service. There is no staff needed to deliver this vital service. There is no excuses that I can see to why this vital service has not already been in place. And my question to the Trust is why? Why are we letting down our most vulnerable in our society? Is it okay for the government to allow the sale of alcohol and tax it knowing it is bad for us? 17.5 billion a year is paid to taxes for alcohol. And then we ask the very people who pay them taxes to go and look at it themselves. For me, that is wrong on every level. Somewhere along the way, the Ashes service has been forgotten, and I want to know why, so this never happens again, pandemic or no pandemic. I propose that a strong letter be sent regarding this matter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, and well done bringing that forward. Could you share that information with the Chief Executive, just so she has it for the letter going forward? All right. Do we have a seconder, members, for that proposal? Councillor Stephen Donnelly, and all agreed? Thank you. I had a contact by Councillor Michael Duff regarding the Chair's reception. Is that right, Councillor?
Surprise, surprise. Are you keeping Earl? Yeah. I want to propose a Chair's reception for those members of local Special Olympics clubs who participated in the World Games in Berlin. And some of them that I'm aware of would include Ellie Armstrong and Sammy Joe Sweeney, and there probably are others known to the rest of us, you know, but definitely them two that I would know of. Ellie, I think, came fourth in swimming, and Sammy Joe got 2 gold medals. So Sammy Joe is a member of Starbreakers, and Ellie is a leading member of Oma Spires Special Olympics Club. So if there are any others, they would want to be included as well, of course. But I want to congratulate them, you know, through this meeting, and ask for a Chair's reception, which would be extended to the athletes themselves, club representatives, family members, and coaches. So I'll just leave it like that. I'd propose that. Thank you.
Take that proposal, and you'll submit the paperwork and all. You'll be well aware of that, Councillor. And Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair, and happy enough to second Councillor McAdull's proposal there.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, that's passed. And Councillor Armstrong had an item or maybe 2 to raise at this stage as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yes, a couple of things. And firstly, I'm noticing more and more in our tourism websites that we're increasingly a dog-friendly district, and that more and more restaurants are opening up, permitting dogs to come in and giving them treats and bowls of water. And I just wondered, could the council extend that to the outside eating area within the castle? Because when people are coming here, whether by boat, by car, whatever, if they've got their dog with them and they want to go in and have something to eat at the castle, if they haven't got the facility to bring the dog in to the outside eating area, could they have to obviously put the dog in the car at that point, or not go into the castle. So that was one request that I'd like to make. The other is really regarding the use of the public moorings, particularly around the town. There's approximately about 5,000 boats on Lough Erne at the moment, whether privately owned or charter boats. This is according to Waterways Ireland last year. And increasingly, craft users are coming to the town, and they're very, very welcome to the town, but some of them are pulling up and finding they've got no mooring space there. That I understand the bylaws mean you can stay for 48 hours, but it's been mentioned to me that it's increasingly difficult, that some craft are perhaps outstaying that 48-hour limit. And it's really to ask if Waterways Ireland, if we could contact them to ask how they're monitoring this, and can they raise public awareness, because those people coming down the Skillen by water, if they can't moor and if there are no moorings available, we're losing that opportunity. That's part of their itinerary. What time do they come down to Skillen? If they can't moor there, they're going to move on. So our town centre, which we want to welcome tourists to, is unable to do so. So it's just to put that as a proposal, if we could please write to Waterways Ireland. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. A seconder for those 2 proposals, members. Councillor Gannon, thank you. The first one, John, you'll bring something back on that around the dogs. Okay. Thank you. Don't think of anything else now. Apologies if I missed anybody, but a proposer to move to confidential Councillor Thompson and seconder Councillor Stephen Donnelly. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. So we'll ask Alison to sum up just whilst in confidential.
Thanks, Chair. Whilst in confidential business, members considered an update report regarding the Mid-South West Growth Deal and noted the various recommendations.
Okay, we'll get a proposer to note that. Councillor Stephen Donnelly and a seconder, Councillor Warrington. Thank you, members. That brings our meeting to a close and I wish you a safe home. Thank you.